I'm Erin Lucy, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking about all the books that I read in September. It was a really good reading month, so I'm very excited to talk about them all. It started with the Illiac Crest by Cristina, Rivera, Garza. So the author is from Mexico, and the whole thing takes place there. And it is a bit of a wild ride. I don't really even know how to explain this one because I feel like I got to the end and didn't really understand. In a little bit of a good way. I mean, I would want to read it again, probably multiple times, but essentially this man is in this house, and these two women throughout the course of one stormy night, show up at his house and change the course of his life, really, or how he's thinking, his mental state. It is, I mean, I really don't even have any more words. Even the plot is very bizarre and interesting, and this character, he works at this mental hospital, but also he's throughout the book struggling with mental illnesses as well, or breakdowns. So no idea what's happening, but it is definitely very about gender and feminism, how women are treated. Essentially these women show up and claim to know his deepest, darkest secret, that he is a woman, which I hope is not too much of a spoiler. I think it's pretty early on, and he's like, what are you talking about? No. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about it. It's really weird, and I would recommend it, but definitely it's not a very clear-cut plot or anything. I feel it's definitely one of those books that I will probably read, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 times and still not entirely know what's happening. It's really short though. I think it was 130 some pages, and I highlighted a ton of things because also just the prose was really beautiful. I think I read some snippets of it in a vlog early on, but yeah, I finished this in the first couple of days of the month. And then okay, next I read the next Ice Planet Barbarian book, which I'm just not even really going to talk about. I talked about them in my August wrap up, so if you want to hear about Ice Planet Barbarians, go there. I read the 4th one. Honestly, I feel they get worse as time goes on. Not sure why I keep reading them. I just listened to it on audiobook one day, and they're really short and easy to listen to. But honestly, I feel like the plot gets less and less, or just more and more repetitive. Yep, there was that. And then I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jenette McCurdy, which is all the rage right now, and it was fantastic, just as fantastic as everybody said it was. And it is about Jenette McCurdy, who plays Sam on iCarly, and her experience as a child star, and with her mom, different pressures growing up from both her family, her mom, and the industry, in terms of eating disorders and pressure to do things and be certain ways. So it's really good. I definitely highly recommend it. I listened to the audiobook. She narrates it, and it is brilliant. So definitely recommend that. Next was another small novella, Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which was just shortlisted for the 2022 Booker Prize. This is really short, and it's one that I want to read again in the winter, around Christmas, because I didn't realize, I should have known by the cover, but going into it, that it is about Christmas and that time of year. It takes place in Ireland in the 80s, and it's this about this guy and his family in this town, and he encounters this mysterious not mysterious, but he encounters a situation that he realizes is maybe not what it seems, and things in the town are not what they seem. Essentially who controls things, and the power of the church over the town and the people. So it was really good, and I would particularly say the descriptions and the talk about food, very Christmassy, and I feel would be really fun to read around that time, because I feel I just didn't vibe on it as much because I was very getting into fall as opposed to Christmas time. So that was the next one. The next book I read was A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. This is a like YA fantasy about this girl Ning and her family, and her mom has died from this poisoned tea. So we're in this world where like tea is this like form of magic and like skill that like certain people possess, and her mom passed away from like a tea that was poisoned, and of course she's like very upset about it, and her sister is actually sick of the poison, and so Ning goes to the palace because they're like holding this competition to basically like choose the next Shenongshi, which is like the person who does this like magic and tea brewing for the palace, and is like the best in the land essentially. So she goes to compete in this competition, win like a favor from the princess, and her intention is really to find a cure for her sister. So she goes on this like adventure. She meets lots of other people. I will say I found it to be pretty slow, especially towards the end. Like I kept thinking things would like pick up, but I feel like there was like a really big chunk that was just really slow for me, and I didn't really get into this one. I did really like the characters. There were a lot of like interesting and exciting female friendships. There was also like kind of hints of a romance. There's a second one. I just don't know if I'm gonna read it because I felt like this one was particularly slow. I did though really enjoy those female friendships, and also the magic system, like being in tea and tea brewing. That was really interesting and not something I've seen before. I also just realized in general in the past few months that like I'm kind of moved a lot away from YA. I feel like it's just like as I'm growing older, it's becoming harder and harder to relate to like YA main characters, and I just get more and more frustrated with the like arrogance and other qualities that are often in these like YA characters that like are very like think they're the center of the world. Just a side note, I've been like thinking about that a lot throughout this month's reading in particular, although I did have 2 books that were YA this month that I actually did really enjoy, which was a surprise because it's been like kind of a long time of just like not really enjoying YA. Anyway, the next 2 books were Becky Chambers' new series, A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. Absolutely loved both. I like gush about them in my forest reading vlog from last week. They're just like so good. Her writing is beautiful. The characters and just like their interactions are amazing. And I also just really like how she talks about nature and our like humans interacting with nature and our relationship with it, especially in this context, because it's like takes place in this like utopian society after some huge conflict with humans and nature, and they separated themselves. So essentially now humans exist in like 50% of the land and nature exists in 50% of the land. That's definitely skewed, but it's like better for both, and that nature can then like thrive on its own and not be constantly like at war with humans. So it takes place in this utopian like futuristic society, and it is about this tea monk Dex, and they are going around to different villages and in like the main city and serving tea to people, and kind of have like a bit of a life crisis and like go off into like the middle grounds, like a little bit into nature, and is kind of just like pondering their life and thinking about things, what they're doing. And they meet this robot, and robots have not been seen or heard from in like 200 years. Essentially one day they just like walked out on humans and decided they like didn't want to work for humans anymore. And at this point humans were like, okay, go for it. And they like went out into nature. This is all, at least from what we know. And so no one's seen or heard from them. So Dex is like really surprised and confused. And the robot Moss Cap has come to ask humans what they need. And so they go on this adventure together. I freaking loved it. Loved both of them. New favorites for sure. So yeah, if you want to hear more, I just talk so much more about it in that vlog. But those were the next. And then I also read Lapvona by Odessa Moshfegh. And this I also read in that same vlog, so I talk so much more about it, so I'll try to be brief here. I also really like this one, surprisingly. This has also seen a lot of really mixed reviews. I understand why. It's hard to read. It is disturbing and like sad and just like kind of makes your like just gut like cringe for a lot of it. But it's just really, really interesting. I really like the books that like make you think about humans and what it means to be human, and this one is definitely the darker side of those things, so definitely fair warning going into it. But it is about this village, Lapvona, in kind of this like medieval-ish, but there's like some small fantasy aspects, world, village, and just like the different characters that live there and the things they go through. And it's disgusting. It is frustrating. I feel like I was often really angry for characters. Like they all treat each other really poorly, and it's frustrating. But I really thought it was interesting, especially thinking about like how different characters thought of themselves in relation to God and like to sin, and then also thought of others. It was just so interesting to like read people's people's points of view and what they thought of themselves, and then other people, and then also like people would treat each other really terribly, but then those people that like I like really felt for would also treat others really terribly. So it was like just this very interesting way of thinking about things, particularly like humans and the more like evil, dark side of humans. So yes, it largely, we'll say like just a little more about the plot, it largely revolves around this boy Merrick and his father. And Merrick is deformed and like made fun of and kind of looked down upon, and it's about like even by his father, and it's about him and his interactions with other people in the town, not just the town though, also they're kind of like governed by this governor essentially on this like hill a little bit away from the rest of the village, who of course has like all the wealth, looks down on everybody, but also like takes care of them. And at one point Merrick also finds himself in the care of the governor. So yes, I enjoyed this. I did not enjoy the last Odessa Moshfegh I read, so this was one that I really did enjoy. So glad I read it. Again, very dark though. Okay, much happier note is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. This is like really thick actually, but it's a graphic novel. And it is beautiful. The art is so gorgeous, just all throughout. It's like this really similar color palette, but they're just like really beautiful. It is a sci-fi, like space exploration type adventure. Also, side note, like I think all the characters are women or non-conforming. So very interesting. It switches between the dual timelines. So Mia went to boarding school and met this girl, developed this relationship with this girl at boarding school, and then the girl disappears. So one of the timelines is back then at boarding school, and then the other is like present day when Mia takes this job on this spaceship. They basically like restore these old sites into like new things. Like throughout the entire galaxy, essentially there's just like these different ruins from different things. Like they do one that's like a church or old like religious building, and they like go restore it for like new things for other people. So that's what they do, but obviously they also go on a big adventure that has to do with like Mia's past and this timeline when she was at boarding school and met this girl. So again, really enjoyed this. It's really thick, but it's a graphic novel, so it was super speedy, and I did try to like take my time though to enjoy the art because it is really beautiful. I keep saying beautiful. I'm trying to stop. All right, the next book is one of the YA books that I loved from this month, and that is Legendborn. by Tracy Deonn, and I partially read it because her next one, Bloodmarked, is coming out, and I've heard a lot of really great things about Legendborn. And it was really, I was like really surprised because it was YA and I was kind of down on YA. Essentially, it's like a bit of a King Arthur, not really retelling, but like the lore and like magic behind it all is kind of like King Arthur based, which is really interesting because I've never read anything that like uses that as its basis. And Bree is this high school student actually who goes to this college university program at this like really old university campus that has all these like societies and stuff like that. And she learns really early on, she has like a couple encounters with some students and some monsters that make her realize like magic exists to some degree. She doesn't really know anything about it or what is going on there, but she has some like kind of crazy encounters, and she kind of gets in with this one particular society and is essentially competing against other pages in like the kind of like the for like entry essentially into this society and to like find a place amongst the others. There's a lot to do with her mother who passed away, and her mother went to this school, and so she like meets an acquaintance of hers and starts to learn things about her and like abilities that her mother possessed. So there's a lot to do with family history, discovering these new like magic system, and kind of also just like coming into herself. And there's some really awesome romance plots too. So I really enjoyed those. Essentially, it was really great. It was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. I'm really excited for the second one. I think I ended up rating this one around like 4.5 stars. The only thing that kind of took off for me is just that it was really good for YA. I did find the main character occasionally to still have some of those traits that I've been frustrated with, but I think this one was like significantly better compared to other ones I've read recently. So yes, I highly recommend reading Legendborn. I guess the only other thing that I was kind of confused about was why the author set it up to like, so she was like in this high school program at this college as opposed to just going to college. That was a little bit confusing to me, but again, the rest of it, the plot, the characters, their interactions, and the magic was super interesting and exciting, and I thought it was super well paced as well. So that was Legendborn. Two more books, Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee, and this one is about this group of Chinese American like 20-something college age, and they are hired by this group / museum in China to steal Chinese art from Western museums. And they all have different backgrounds. Like one is she races cars, and then one is like art history, really into art history. So they all have these like different expertise. Like one is the coder. Anyway, they have these different expertise. So of course they come together, but they all know each other through some aspect of life. And they decide to take this group up on this offer and go steal these zodiac heads from different museums. So they go on these crazy adventures. They like have to like think through these heists. One of the people involved, like their dad is actually in charge of like art like at the FBI. He's in charge of like investigating art thefts. So they have to like be really careful and think through all these things. And yeah, it was good. It was decent. I did also feel like this one for me kind of lost me a little towards the end as well. But I thought it was a really interesting concept for sure. Just them like thinking about stolen art, colonialism, and how a lot of museums have like not given back artifacts that were essentially stolen from other countries. So yeah, it was interesting. I just feel like towards the end it got a little bit lost. I do feel like it had pretty strong like character interactions and relationships, but it was also a lot of characters to follow like so closely in a pretty short amount of time. So Portrait of a Thief. And then the final book was Seoulmates by Susan Lee, and this just came out pretty recently. It is a very cute like YA rom-com. This was the other one I really liked that was YA, and I was surprised because I was kind of feeling like with this one too, I don't know, I feel like contemporary romance can also be a hit or miss for me, and this is kind of like a mix between like YA and contemporary romance, but I actually really liked it. It's about Hannah and Jacob, and they grew up together as like childhood friends. They were really close, just like best friends until high school when Jacob's dad died and he and his family moved back to Korea, and it was supposed to be temporary, but things happened. And so now they're like in the present timeline, they are separated, and Hannah is living in San Diego, where they're from, and Jacob is actually now like a really big K-drama star. So he's really famous, everybody loves him, and he's acting in this K-drama that's really popular. So he kind of has an injury and decides to take a little bit of a break, and his family decides that they would come back to the US and stay with Hannah's family for the summer. Problem is Hannah and Jacob at this point are really estranged. Essentially, they like lost touch during those years, which you'll find out about during the book. So they're like really mad at each other and don't really know how to interact for a while. At the same time, Hannah, her boyfriend just broke up with her and she's devastated, and she really wants to like win him back, which of course, you know, is always one of those tropes. But Jacob comes and he kind of ropes her into helping check these things off his bucket list of things to do around San Diego, because he's like catches her sneaking out one night, so he kind of blackmails her. So they kind of are forced to go on these adventures together, and it was really cute. I thought it was really super well done. There was no like major miscommunications or anything like that. Like, you know, I don't know. I thought it was really cute and was surprised that I liked it so much. So that was Seoulmates, and that was also everything that I read in the month of September. I'm super looking forward to October reads and the more like spooky, darker vibes. So I'd love to hear some of your highlights from September or what you're looking forward to in this spooky season. So alrighty, I hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching.